All right, Cheesers, one more recap before the final one. So technically two more, but one more before the final one. So the way I think I'm going to do these is we'll do this one leading into the championship weekends because we've got the regular season championship being wrapped up for the Reach Throwback, and then of course the grand finals for that the following week. And then we've also got the Firestone Firehawk grand finals this weekend as well. So yeah, this will be the championship weeks because that's all it is. Regular season and grand finals for these next 2 weeks. And then of course after these grand finals and after all this is wrapped up, so a couple weeks from now, I'll do one final recap on the end of these seasons, and that'll be the last recap for the year. So we're gonna go through Reach first and take a look at week number 9. So here you can see the results for this. Roman with a really strong week. I'd say he was probably the biggest gainer, like relative to where he is in the points, if that makes sense. Obviously, not. He didn't end up getting the overall. His Autodome finish was so close, but not high enough. So really close on that. But relative to where he is in the points and like who he's competing with and stuff like that, I think he was the big gainer because he was. It didn't seem like he was going to be too close with Slancha, and now it's like a legit battle between the two of them, which we'll get to when we look at the points. Like they're going to be really close for that fourth and potentially third place spot as well. It's going to be tough for them to make up that ground, but there is 3 more races left to do it. But yeah, so Roman, Nuked, and Detail being the podium for Trip Reigns, and then Adrenaline Autodome, myself, Sully, and Nuked for this one. And then the overall 29 points of pop for myself and Newt, and then 28 for Roman. Detail 23, Opix 22, Camby 20, Soul 19, Hunter 18, Vulcan 18. So as we've seen, like the middle of these overalls, I feel like this has been the case for a lot of these weeks in Reach, and it's kind of how we thought it was going to go, and it's kind of how it has gone. It's just so close. I mean, it's crazy that 4th place overall to 10th down here with Turkey is just a 6-point gap. That's pretty nuts. And then Sully's 2 points off. He didn't race the first race. Like, if he did as well as he did at Autodome, if he showed up for the first race, he probably would have been high up there as well. So that's pretty funny. That's pretty funny too. But yeah, so 2019, 18, 18. Turkey 17, Sully with 15, just the one race of the night. So yeah, those are the results for the races this last week. So taking a look at the points, and this is going to be the deep dive because we're going to take a look at a lot of these different points and the team points and all that stuff. So let's take a look at it. So first of all, the mulligans. The only drivers that have mulligans in play are Luke, Soul, Opix, and Detail. Luke, Soul, Opix all have the max amount of mulligans for, so long as they all show up for all the races in this last night, and then Detail is at 2. So he's the only driver with 2 mulligans. He's the only driver that's had like 1 night missed. All these other drivers have had 2 nights missed, so they are right where they need to be. Hunter, Vulcan, Turkey, Slaunch, Roman, Nuked, they are all right where they need to be. They do not have mulligans, but they do have a full season as long as they show up for this final night. And then all these drivers at the bottom do not have a full season. So that's the setup here. 10 drivers with the potential to have a full season. That's what we're looking at. 4 with mulligans and 3 of them with the full mulligans. So what about the points battles? So the top 3, I think, are most likely locked in. The top 2, for sure. Like, Luke and Detail should finish 1, 2 in this order. I'm pretty sure. I'm not going to go through and do the math, but I'm not even sure if, like, the position swap is possible with, like, mulligans and stuff factored in. And, like, if Detail, like, sweeps the night and Luke gets, like, worst possible finishes. It might be locked in. I would assume it is. If it's not, it's, like, 99% probably going to end that way. And then Detail's got a pretty nice advantage for second place as well. Even if Nuked has a really good night, I think it's going to be really tough with those 2 mulligans that Detail's got, and all he has to do is probably get like 1 decent finish, and he's probably chilling. So this top 2 is probably locked in. Now, after that is where it gets interesting. So unfortunately, we don't have that championship battle that we had in Firestone Firehawk, but the rest of the points is pretty spicy, actually. So Nuked in third in a weird spot because he's like too far away to make gains on the top 2 at this point, I think. But he's also got a pretty decent gap on Roman and Slaunch in 4th and 5th. But at the same time, no mulligans. So if Nuke does have a couple bad races and Slanch or Roman have a really good night, it is possible with 3 races as well. You get that extra race in there. It is possible that they could make up this gap. That being said, is it likely? No. Most likely, the top 3 in the order that you see right now is going to be the top 3 for the reach throwback. That's the most likely outcome. But it could happen. It's just going to take, again, like at least 2 pretty bad finishes from Nuked, and Roman and Slanch, or either of them, are going to have like a really good night. Like all races in the podium type night. And then even then, it's still going to be like close. Like it's such a big gap, it's still going to be close. It's going to be hard for them to make up this gap. But it is technically possible. But again, probably not likely. This is probably the top 3 you'll see. But now that we're outside of the top 3, that getting to Nuked, it's like, all right, it gets a little spicy. But now that we get outside of the top 3, now it gets very spicy. Roman and Slanch, 1 point difference for 4th and 5th. So they literally have 1 point between each other. No mulligans for either of them. And look at their stats, too. Their stats are so similar. Like, it's crazy how similar their stats are. The same top 5s, the same podiums, the same moto wins. Slanch has the 1 overall over Roman. And Roman's got a bit of a gap in the plus-minus. But their actual, like, race stats are, like, virtually identical. And they're 1 point off each other. So they are so close. This is a pretty exciting battle for that 4th, 5th points spot. And again, with the no mulligans, what I like about it is that it comes down to these last 3 races. Like, whoever does better on the night is going to get the advantage here. It might come down to like 1 point, you know? You never know. Like, it could end up being like a 1 or 2 point gap between them at the end of the night with how close they are. So their performances in these last 3 races are going to decide it for that position. And then we have this group right here, Sol, Turkey, Opix, 6, 7, 8. They're very close as well. Sol is 8 points up on Opix, and Turkey is sandwiched in the middle, 4 points ahead of Opix, 4 points down on Sol. This is an interesting one because Sol and Opix have the mulligan advantage. So, like, if Turkey has some rough finishes, that's going to hurt Turkey quite a bit. Opix and Sol have those mulligans to work with, though, so it maybe won't hurt them as much. Hard to tell. Have to look at their other results to see if that's the case. But again, like, with how close they are, this is another spot where it's most likely going to come down to how these guys perform on the last night. And we could see some switch-ups here. It's hard to tell. Again, going to come down to the last night. Very close. Looking forward to seeing the end of this points battle. And then we have Hunter and Vulcan, who are... They're probably locked in their spot. Hunter's a little too far behind Opix, and Hunter's a little too far in front of Vulcan, so they're probably going to finish where they are. But you never know. Again, 3 races, no mulligans. You never know. Things could happen, but they're probably locked. And of course, all these other spots are not fighting for the full season. So if any of these guys show up, they're showing up to race to have fun and try to go for some wins if they can. So there you go. There's your breakdown in the main points. Yeah, really spicy battle right here in the mid pack, and then 4-5 really close. So those are the points battles that I'm looking at going into the end of the night. So looking at the divisions for the different track types, we'll take a look at those real quick. And as you can see, the oval one, I would imagine this is probably locked up for the win. And as long as Slanch shows up, unless he does really, really bad, as long as he has like a decent result, probably locked in for second as well. So 1-2 in the oval being Luke and Slanch is probably locked in, I would imagine, or like at least very likely. Now, after that, spice galore, plenty of spice. Sol, 2 points in front of Detail, so that's a pretty close margin. You know, depending on how they finish in this last race, Detail could make that up, get the podium spot in the oval, so that's very close. But right now, Sol's holding on to that. Hunter in 5th with 55, but then Turkey's got 52. Opix has 52, so they're very close. Vulcan here with 48, Nuked with 46. A lot of close point gaps throughout the field here in our oval division points standings. That's what we're looking at here. So yeah, top 2 most likely locked in, but the mid pack gets a little spicy, kind of similar to the overall points. Then we look at the GP, and Luke's 3-point gap over Detail for 1-2. So this is another thing where it could get close. The interesting thing here, Luke does have that mulligan, Detail does not. So that's kind of interesting. But this is close. It's workable. At 3 points is definitely a solid gap. But, you know, if Detail like takes the win and Luke gets 3rd, that right there is the gap for them tying. And then if they tie, it'll go to some tiebreaker measure. I'd have to figure it out how that would go. But that's basically the gap. Detail needs to finish either 3 positions in front of Luke or like win and finish 2 positions in front, which is very doable. So definitely a lead. Definitely we got a champ battle for the GP division. There we go. We got a champ battle here, so that's good to see. And then Nuked is very close behind in 3rd, but a little bit higher of a hill to climb with the 5-point gap. But he does have the mulligan, so that's interesting as well. But a little bit higher of a hill to climb. He could make gains here at the end, but it's going to be tough because, like, even if he has a really good night, even if he has a really good night with the mulligan for Luke and with detail, like, with pretty consistent results, like, both of these guys are going to have, like, really bad finishes, and then even if they do, like I said, Luke's got the mulligan advantage. So it's going to be tough for Nuke to make some gains here, but it is possible. And then Roman is in a solid spot in 4th. Potentially could take that off Nuke if he has a really good last race, and I think Roman's got a nice gap from behind, so he should be feeling pretty safe there. Then we got Soul, Slaunch Hunter really close, Opix not too far off, Vulcan, Turkey. Yeah, so the GP division really close at the top, so that's nice to see. Let me take a look at Supercross, and Supercross is also pretty close. Similar story to what we saw in GP. This time it's a 3-point gap. Mulligan's in play for both of them. 3-point gap between Luke and Detail on this one. So again, close 1-2 battle, and Roman I think is a little too far off to be competitive in this. Roman should probably have that 3rd place locked up though, so that's good for him. He should probably have that locked up. So good, yeah, good for Roman there. But we could have another champ battle here for the SX division. Roman looking pretty solid, that top 3. But then look at this, Nuked, Turkey, Opix, 1 point off each other for 4, 5, 6, pretty sick. Slaunch, Soul, 1 point off each other. So some really close points all throughout in SX. That's pretty cool. Taking a look at team points. The team points pretty locked in at this point. Do Fear the Reaper, I would say, like, has it locked up for sure. It was really close in the beginning, and then kind of as we expected. Like, this is usually what happens with the team points. The first like 4 or 5 weeks or so, very close, very competitive, and then that started to not be the case. And it's a combination of things, different teams going on runs, different weeks being stronger for different teams, and also just like the average of results, right? If a team has like things can usually be a little bit closer in the first like couple weeks, but then usually as a season starts to go on, it starts to separate a little bit. That usually just happens. But that being said, it was still like it was really close in the beginning, and it's definitely nice to have the teams back. So I was glad that we have the teams back and had that to factor in again. So yeah, so there you go. So now take a look at the schedule and line it all up. So I'm determined, even if this is a longer recap, I'm determined to not have this be a 30-minute long upload. So let's finish this out here. So again, you see these results, previous results and stuff like that. So we got Floodline, Montreal, and Homestead coming up. These are our last 3 races. So again, it's a triple header to end out the regular season. 1 Supercross, 1 GP, 1 Oval, and then that's it for the Reach Throwbacks. So one more night, first only night in the regular season where we get to run one of every track type, of course, because it's a triple header. That should be pretty cool. It's a nice track lineup. There's a good like variety in skill gap in these tracks, I would say. Like, none of these are like the most technical tracks in the schedule, but I wouldn't say that they're the easiest either, and they're all like kind of unique in their track category too for how the tracks are built. So it's a pretty decent lineup for a triple header. I'm looking forward to it. Should be pretty fun races. So yeah, so that's what we got lined up for that. Now we'll take a look at the Firestone Firehawk schedule, because there's a little update I got to do for that. So for the Firestone Firehawk schedule, we got Hobgoblin, Firestone, Firehawk. So Roman did some updates to Hobgoblin, which I believe we have raced to this track in Firestone Firehawk a long time ago. I'm not 100% sure, but I believe we have. If we didn't race it in Firestone Firehawk, we at least did like some GP races on it. I am positive we've raced it before. And I think he did some touch-ups on it, made some adjustments to it, made it a little more like cheesy. But that'll be our 2-moto Halo 4 GP track. Our 2-moto Hog track is a rallycross that I'm working on. I'm hoping to have that like a preview of that on Friday. So I'll try to get that out as soon as I possibly can. But that's going to be like the 2 tracks with the 2 motos, and then the tracks that get their 1 moto in that got voted in from the regular season was Cairo for the Gooses and Monza for the Hogs. So that's how that worked out. So we got a lineup of 4 tracks for 6 races here, 2 motos on Hobgoblin, 2 motos on my RX that I'm cooking up, and then 1 on Cairo, 1 on Monza for 6 races total for this Firestone Firehawk Grand Final, which seems like a lot, but honestly, for Firestone Firehawk and like the length of the motos, I don't think it'll be that bad. I mean, the quads honestly weren't that bad and like barely took an hour. So as far as like our grand finals go, I actually don't think this will be that bad. I wouldn't be surprised if we're really on it and running things quickly. I wouldn't be surprised if this ends at like a similar time to like the Reach throwback like triple header. I honestly wouldn't be surprised. But yeah, so that's the lineup for that. Now we go back to the Reach throwback schedule because again, this is the last recap that I'm doing. Until all this is done, then we'll do a final recap. So we're taking a look at the grand finals here. So after this regular season is over for the Reach throwback, the next week, the very next week, we'll be looking forward to the grand finals for the Reach throwback, and this will be the final event of the year. This will be the final event of the year. So this is the last HRL event that we are doing for 2022, which is pretty crazy. This year, in some ways, felt like it dragged on, and in other ways, it's kind of crazy that it's like the end of the year already. But yeah, we're here, we're at the end, and this is the lineup for it. So 2 tracks for each track category. For the GPs, it's going to be Watkins Glen and Laguna Seca. For the Supercrosses, it's going to be AMA Phoenix and Redacted Water. Ha ha. I cannot believe, I don't even want to explain the story with this. And for the ovals, it's going to be Darlington and Boulder Bay. So we got an MX and an SX, a pretty technical SX, and an MX that's a classic, very fun. That should be a really good track to race on, and it should be a fun throwback too. This is one of a lot of people's like favorite throwbacks from Reach. And then Watkins Glen and Laguna Seca, like same thing there, 2 throwback GPs that a lot of people enjoy. Happy to see those in the grand finals. And then Darlington, a very unique oval. I'm curious to see how this races with us. To get it in there, we don't want to have 2 ovals that are too similar. And then Boulder Bay, very similar to Big Bear. Sorry, very similar to Big Bear, like sister track to Big Bear. And Big Bear, I think, was one of our better races on the season in general, not just for ovals, but just in general. So it's nice that we're going to have a track that's like pretty similar to it to get another oval race in the grand finals and end off the season with a 100-lap shootout on Boulder Bay. Should be pretty hype. So there you go. That's the lineup of the championship weeks for the end of the season. So yeah, pretty crazy that we've only got 3 more events left on the calendar, and then that's going to be it for the year. And then we're going to be going into a pretty long break until we race again. Yeah, pretty nuts. But probably share more thoughts on that in my looking forward video that I kind of hinted at in the Infinite exhibition. I kind of hinted at that. So whenever I make that, I'll probably talk a little bit more about that. Again, like if I'm doing like a roadmap type thing for going forward, I'll probably recap the last year as well. But yeah, so hopefully you guys are all set and are informed on what's, where people are in the points, what's going on, and what the last final events are of the season. Thanks for everyone sticking with us throughout the year and for these final events too. If you guys enjoyed it, and we'll see you there, hopefully.